2 weeks, Chris. We are 2 weeks away from training camp. Can it get here already, please? Please?
Yeah. Well, first I have a vacation.
Me too.
Then we can fast forward and get there to training camp. Yeah.
Okay, well, before you go on your vacation, before I go on my vacation, we got to talk about Bryce Young. Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight. Let's huddle up for Panthers Playbook. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. Just because we're going on vacation doesn't mean the content stops for you folks. Chris, let's go and dive right into it. By the way, we're talking Bryce Young. What is a realistic expectation for the former number 1 overall pick going into year 3? And that's a big question going into this year, Chris, because we saw the last 10 starts or so of the year last year. Really like the strong finish we saw to the end of Bryce Young's season last year. But we can't discount what happened at the beginning of the year. We can't still discount completely what happened as a rookie a little bit because we saw that carryover into last year. We need to see him put together a full season where he plays at an elite level, or at least at a high level. The guy was a former number 1 overall pick. You should expect that from the guy.
For sure. We know 2023, when he came into the league, the Carolina Panthers were a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
For his first 11 starts, he was, completing more than 20 passes per game, which, him and Justin Herbert were like the only 2 quarterbacks to ever do that in NFL history. So he didn't necessarily have a horrible start himself. It's just that the team was horrible. So it therefore looked horrible.
Bad.
And he got sacked over 60 times that year, which for me, you have the sacks, and you have the new head coach that kind of came in, and this guy had no confidence in himself or in his line or in the new offense or anything. I think that's why the beginning of last year looked the way it looked. Not necessarily for me a carryover from 2023, more so of this is where this guy is. He got beat up, in 2023.
Yeah, he
didn't know what he had yet, and he needed to sit down and to see it. So I don't take away at the first part of last year, but at the same time, because that lets me know what he could regress to if things aren't great around him. But I feel comfortable with what's around him. And so I look at the end of last year as like, this is a snapshot of what could be. So when you ask me, hey, what is realistic for Bryce Young? We have said that we hope that what they've done with the Panthers offense, they were a 23rd or something, 23rd, 24th in total offense last year. With what they've done, we're hoping that they jump up and basically end up being that mid-tier. So what I did was I went to see what were total yards last year per team. And number 16, which I'm just going to call that the dead middle, even though 16 and 17 would be the dead middle in the NFL.
Yeah.
It was the Dallas Cowboys, who had 5,583 yards total, which was an average of 328 yards per game. So I said to myself, yeah, I think that's about where the Carolina Panthers should be. So in that case, for the Dallas Cowboys, who also happened to have Rico Dowdle last year, they averaged about 100 yards rushing per game. With Rico Dowdle, with Chuba Hubbard, with the offensive line, I would hope you could get 100 per game.
Yeah, I would hope so too.
So let's say it's 100 per game. That leaves you 228 yards per game that you have to get, pretty much from Bryce Young, because he'll be passing the ball. And what I came up to, if you times that by 17, is 3,876 yards.
Okay. So 38.76.
And I felt like that was maybe a little steep. So I'm going to pull it back down to about 3,500 yards. Just to say that maybe he won't get over 200 yards for every game. There'll be some games he'll get 300. Some games it'll be a lot less. But I think that's a good split right there for me. I think that he needs to hit 3,500 yards, especially if the other parts of the team are doing what they're supposed to do, and if everybody is healthy.
Okay, so he hasn't hit 300 yards in the passing game yet in his career. He's got to 298, but he hasn't quite hit 300 in an actual game. So if you look at the last 10 starts, it's interesting that you bring up that 3,500 passing yard number. The last 10 starts when he came in after Andy Dalton had the wrist injury with the car accident and all that, those last 10 games that he started, if you take those averages and spread them out over a 17-game season, that's 3,577 yards. You're looking at 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Okay, that's what you're looking at for Bryce Young.
Sounds about right to me.
Yeah, it does. Well, here's the thing. Like, to kind of give you a little bit of comparison on that, now, granted, the rushing numbers are going to be drastically different between the two, but Jaden Daniels last year in Washington threw for 3,568 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Now, granted, Jaden Daniels also has that element of his run game that Bryce Young, not saying he's incapable as a runner, but very much different players.
Yes.
But you also look at Jaden Daniels was 16th in the NFL in passing yards last season. 16th. Caleb Williams was 17th last year at 3,541 yards. He had 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And you want to talk about a team that had a bad offensive line, that fired their coach during the season, and all of a sudden Thomas Brown became the offensive coordinator. Does that sound familiar to you, Chris?
Wow.
It's
wow.
amazing.
It was like a broken record around
I
here.
know, right? From one rookie quarterback to the other. So I mean, honestly, it should be realistic that Bryce Young should be throwing for 3,500 yards. He's a former 1 overall pick. I mean, Bo Nix last year with the Denver Broncos was the 6th quarterback taken, was a rookie last year, threw for 3,775 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 12 picks. Like, there's no reason why Bryce Young shouldn't do that, especially continuity carrying over from one year to the next. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't expect that from a guy like Bryce Young. Again, former number 1 overall pick with everything coming back on offense this year. I think something that I would like to see this offense improve is just not just from a yard standpoint, but from a scoring standpoint. The Panthers were in the bottom third in the NFL in actual trips to the red zone per game at just under 3. It was 2.9. It was Dallas, Jacksonville, Carolina, the Chargers, New England, like all kind of clumped there at like 20 to 24 in the NFL. Now, the Carolina Panthers, when they got to the red zone, were top 10 in terms of red zone touchdown percentage, but actually getting to the red zone is actually something that they need to continue to work on. It's just more trips to the red zone, more points obviously would come from that. But, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility, and it should be expected that if you say 3,600 yards, 3,700 yards for Bryce Young this season, that should be an expectation. I mean, 3,700 yards will put you at just under CJ Stroud, who last year at 37-27.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, like, we're asking a former number 1 overall pick to be middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Like, that should be reasonable. It really should be.
And it's also taking into account, like, if you're playing a whole 17 and with everything that, was added to the offense this year, first off, the running game should be a smidge better because you brought in Rico Dowdle. Like, you have a
whole old line's back.
he could possibly go to another team and be the number 1 running back, and you have that guy as the number 2. And then you mentioned the offensive line. We have some questions about the tight end group, but still feel like we like the tight end group when healthy. But that wide receiver core, like, somebody, if they don't carry 7 on the initial 53, somebody is going to make another team a pretty decent, number 4 wide receiver when they get cut, right? Because this is probably the best wide receiver core that I can remember the Carolina Panthers having, where legit 1 through 6, not saying that they're world beaters, right? But 1 through 6 is probably better than what, like 5 and 6 are probably better than what the Carolina Panthers had 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, the question is, like, who's still that number 1 guy? Because, I mean, obviously there's the days of the Steve Smith and all that, but, like, who could be that number 1?
It feels like Teteroy McMillan, that's his job to come take. But
it's hard to ask a rookie to do that.
At the same time, it doesn't, right. It's hard to ask a rookie to do that, but also I don't think there's a rush because I think there's enough to go around to where, in this case, maybe you're middle of the pack because you haven't had a number 1 emerge. Top 10, you have Cincinnati, Detroit, Tampa. You had Seattle. You had Minnesota. You had Baltimore. You had KC. You had the Jets. You had the Chargers. I saw LAC. I was going to say Clippers, and I was like, that's not the Clippers. And then you had San Francisco. All of those teams, most of those teams had a number one guy that you could really count on. That was there. Who for sure, you looked at that guy and you know for sure that that's their number one. Carolina Panthers don't quite have it yet. We feel like we know who will end up being. And I think that also works with what we're saying. He should fall middle of the pack. Once Tedderola and McMillan really comes around and being that as that number one, then I think what we think about Bryce and his expectations, that also goes higher. Because then maybe next year you're talking about in 2026, maybe Bryce, you're a 4,000-yard passer. Maybe. Especially if things start, going right with the receiving core.
I agree with you. Eventually getting there, but I mean, is it realistic to expect that Bryce Young could pass for as many yards as Bo Nix did last year? Like, I mean,
you said 3,700, right, for Bo Nix last year?
3,775.
Yeah, I mean,
and then went 10-7.
Yeah,
the playoffs, 29 touchdowns, twice. Like, is that unrealistic to expect from a guy like him?
It's not.
Again, it's not. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Like, we should raise the expectations for Bryce Young coming into this year. Like, we really need to. And I think the Panthers, obviously, as an organization, need to. Like, he can't come out there and just throw duds. He really can't. If you, again, look at the last 10 games that he started last year from that Broncos game all the way through the end of the season, which, by the way, there are 4 games that went to overtime during that 10-game stretch. He averaged about 210 yards passing a game.
Yeah.
Like, 210. In a passing NFL and a passing league. And the way the era of football is nowadays, as opposed to even what it was 10 years ago, like 210's not unrealistic.
Yeah.
Like, we should expect that at minimum from him this season, at a minimum.
So since we're talking about the minimum, what do you think is the maximum? Because I think you and I are both I think we gave conservative answers based off of what they did last year and looking at Bryce playing the entire year with health and full deck of cards available to him. What do you think is the maximum? What type of jump do you think he can realistically make?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Like, what would be the ceiling? Like, we kind of gave like a floor. Yeah. Like, what would be the ceiling on that? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility I think some of this factors into, like, there's got to be context with it a little bit in the sense of, are you ahead in games? You're not going to be thrown quite as much. Like we saw Jaden Daniels, like his numbers weren't that high relative to some other people in terms of the season numbers, but when you're winning games, you're running at the ball a lot more. Yeah. I think it's realistic to say, 3,800 passing yards, which would kind of put you in line of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray last year was 3,851 on a 500 team. Team won 8-9. I call it, 8-9 is potentially 500. But that's 3,851 yards on a 500 team last year. Yeah. Like, should we? You and I are anticipating an 8-9 win season for the Panthers. Like, who's to say that he can't be that either? By the way, Murray was a number 1 overall pick himself.
Yeah.
I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think that is like a good range to expect. If he throws for 4,000 or more, I ain't going to hate it. I'm not going to hate it at all. But I think
if he does 4,000, that definitely puts him in the top 10 in the NFL.
Oh, you're talking about
even
top 5.
Yeah, even Patrick Mahomes didn't have 4,000 last year. He's very close, but he didn't hit 4,000. So if he does that, but that's the thing though. I do think that is attainable within the next few years.
Sure.
If Bryce is developing the way he should, and if the Carolina Panthers is continuing to keep this team together and build it the way that they should. 4,000 should not be a problem by 2027.
No, it shouldn't be. Like, your number 1 overall pick?
Yeah.
You should be.
Yeah.
Like, you should be. Look at the top 3 passers in terms of yards last year were Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield. What do all 3 of those guys have in common? First pick. They were the first pick.
I was going to say they have a number 1 wide receiver, but yeah.
There's that too. There's that too. But those guys were all number 1 picks at some point. Yeah. And like you said, all have number 1 wide receivers and like true go-to options there. Maybe Carolina will eventually, like, McMillan grows into that. Maybe that's eventually the case. But I think the expectation and the standard for Bryce of what we should expect for this upcoming year, year 3, It can't just be like an okay season. Like, it just can't be like mid. Like, it can't just be mid this season or even like a little bit below that. There's no reason, again, that you can't be top half of the NFL in terms of like top 15, top 16 in passing.
What's mid to you? Under 3,500 passing yards?
Yeah. Like, I would say, like, if he throws like 3,200 this season, then you literally are dropping down into like the Jordan Love, who only played 15 games last year, but like you're dropping into like a pretty low category. Even if you go in terms of like yards per game, again, the last 10 starts for Bryce Young was 210. Derrick Carr was 214. That's what we're looking at. Derrick Carr was 214 yards passing a game. He only played in 10 games because of injuries and all that. Like, Daniel Jones last year, 207.
He got fired.
Yeah. Mid-season. He got fired mid-season.
And he got fired.
Yeah. Like, Daniel Jones was 207 passing yards a game. Again, the last 10 games of the season for Bryce Young was 210. That's only 3 yards better than Daniel Jones.
Yeah. So he should be able to do that, especially
easily.
You know, if he's if you play minimum 15 games, to me, you should have at least 33. If you play the full 17, you need to have at least 36.
Yeah.
36.
Russell Wilson threw for 225 yards last year, like per game. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's Russ.
Well, I mean, he's not a bad thrower, though.
I mean, his arm's like a noodle now.
It's not as good as it was, but he still was able to get some air under him. I mean, let's not disrespect the guy, Russ, though.
It's making it rain out there, throwing up jump balls.
Hey, but listen, he married Sierra. He can do no wrong in my eyes.
You know what?
I want to see you 1-2 step. We about to get it on. See?
Yeah, Pittsburgh told him to 1-2 step to the Giants. That's what they told him to do. Again, leave your thoughts in the comments section. What is a realistic expectation for Bryce Young? Like, what should we expect? Like, realistic season, but what should be the expectation for Bryce Young this upcoming season as we're 2 weeks away from training camp? Chris, you go enjoy your vacation. I'm going to go enjoy my vacation.
You do too, yes.
We'll see y'all next time.